Hello and welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm Billy Strange. Hope you're doing well. Today's video will focus on viewer feedback from our GT Sport review. Before we get to our viewer feedback, I just want to let people know a couple things. Most importantly, podcasts and audio only stuff. Trying to figure out a way to produce more content for you guys. Reviews take a really long time, and I've heard you guys, so has John. Even when I do test drives, those can take quite a while to produce because we're trying to put out something that's not just thrown together. Audio only stuff will allow us to do things more quickly. If you're like me and you just want to listen to something while you're driving or working on a project or what have you, we're going to put those on podcast services now, so you can look forward to those. Along with that, I kind of want to keep up on like thoughts or topics that come to mind, and I can do them quickly without having to correlate the video with what I'm talking about. So in other words, you're basically going to get a very quick or short podcast from myself, along with just some gameplay footage on the screen. That way you don't have to watch it, or if you want to watch something, you know, there will be something on the screen, but not necessarily related to what I'm talking about. It just allows me to produce these things quicker, so I hope you guys are looking forward to that. And then the other thing I'm going to mention is I'm going to start doing a Q&A segment. Specifically, you guys can ask me questions. I'm sure you can ask John questions too. I don't know how often he's going to be able to get to it, but I'm not going to commit to like a weekly schedule, but I'll do it when I can, when there's time. And I'm hoping that even though I state things in different videos or some of the live shows that we were doing, I don't think people know totally where I'm coming from, and if we get new people, that's kind of tough too. So hopefully by doing a Q&A, it can be about anything sim related, about my past racing history, my past video gaming history, anything like that I will answer. And so it's just kind of to give you a better grounding of where I'm coming from, so when I do a review or when I talk about something, you know where I'm coming from, and you can either disagree or agree with me because you understand my perspective as well. I'm going to start doing these Q&A sessions, and hopefully, yeah, it just becomes something that maybe people will enjoy. So another way to try to interact with you guys. I unfortunately don't have the ability to do anything live. My internet speed is horrible, as those of you who watched our live streams can see that. So I apologize, there's just no way I can do that. They don't offer a fast enough internet speed for me. So that's all done. Let's get on to viewer feedback. Alright, first viewer feedback. I feel like once the dust settles and people start judging this game for what it actually is, it will be regarded much highly. That's an interesting perspective, and I say that because it all depends on how well this online structure works. Right now we're in this phase where we're kind of sorting things out through the licensing system and safety rating, and that seems like it's going to seat us in these championships, you know, however long those last, and then it seems like it's going to go reset again. Not necessarily your safety rating that, but you're going to get these almost like a qualifying period again, and then there's going to be more championships down the line. My biggest question mark is, what is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is to get into these championships and possibly win them. That's only a very small group of people that are going to have that ability. I mean, that's just the way it is. Is there enough there for everybody else to still stay engaged with GT Sport? This title only appeals to a very small subset of users. First, you're narrowing the pool by making this, you know, a more sim-like game. Now you've taken away the single-player aspect from those that used to love what GT was all about. So now you kind of push those people aside. So now you have, in theory, the hardest of hardcore people. You need a PlayStation Plus account as well, and so you just narrow your pool of players. It'll be interesting to see if it can sustain itself, even though a console has a large user base. My fear is that if there's not enough offline, there is no offline, but if there's not enough single-player content to kind of mix things up, and the daily races should be daily, not that you can run them daily. It should be like they change every day. Those types of things can really backfire on GT Sport. But if you look at the plan that they've laid out, I think if you take it for what it is going for, it could end up turning some heads and work out well in the end. Alright, comment number 2. I give it a 2 out of 5 so far. The lack of car mods. I was wondering why no one ever mentioned it early on. In single-player races that has been a staple in all GTs is a sad disappointment. Also, the short licensed missions was a letdown, though the final quest took me damn near an hour. Some of the cars also seem like they're riding on marshmallows with their odd physics, particularly when you do push them like you mentioned. I played the demo, but wish I just rented the game from GameFly instead of buying it yesterday. Thanks so much for the comment. I think GT Sport's biggest problem is how we are judging it right in this moment. Trying to judge it for what it is and what they set out to accomplish with it versus our expectation or what we want it to be is, I think, working against itself. In other words, comparing it to the landscape of other games or sims currently out on the market, especially the ones that were just released, or if you have a history with the GT series, I think it's very easy to look at GT Sport right now and go, that's not what I want. And you're right. You know, this is not for single player. It just isn't. Especially with the online all the time connection. I mean, I just tried to do a bunch of stuff today in it to test out more of the online stuff, and I wanted to finish the campaign, and I couldn't because the servers were down. In fact, they've been down twice today. And unfortunately for the person leaving the comment, that's obviously not what they really wanted. They're missing that traditional single player aspect, as am I. But I have to review it for what they're setting out to do, not what I want it to be, because if I reviewed every game like that, that means every game would be the same. And then why would we need so many different ones? So to wrap this one up, that's where I'm coming from when I go through a review for a title. Judging it on what it is versus what I want it to be and trying to take myself out of that equation. Alright, and comment number 3. LMAO. Less cars is a good thing, that's in quotation marks. The fact that you only had one con in a game with pretty much no real single player, 150 cars, 17 tracks, multiplayer that keeps the same tracks for an entire week, no in-depth car upgrade system, no dynamic weather, mediocre damage and sound is mind-blowing. Great review. That's sarcasm. And so while the commenter does bring up completely legitimate points, there is nothing stating there that isn't true, right? I think there's a little bit of an issue with how we all want to receive information, right? So we don't do numbered rating reviews. That becomes very contentious. You gave it a 3.5, but you gave this one a 2, but blah, 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 and it goes back and forth, right? And the appearance can seem very inconsistent, even though it's not, because what I value as a sim racer or as a person that enjoys racing games is not the same as the commenter or you watching this video value. That kind of skews things a little bit because we don't have the same opinions. And that's great, that's what it's supposed to be like. The same can be said with our pros, neutrals, and cons. I think for the most part this format works pretty good, but it does have its drawbacks, and you can see it here. You know, the commenter really hones in on there's only one con, but if you listen to the whole review and take out what, you know, pros, neutrals, and cons, get rid of all that, and just listen to it line by line, there's more nuance to the review than that. John just felt differently about things. You know, I would have put the rally stuff in the cons, right? I don't think it does anything good. While it can be fun, it's not, I don't think it's realistic in the slightest, and I don't know if they're going to use it online in a championship. So there's several different ways to take all this. You know, John made fair and valid points, most of which I agree with. When you have a large selection of cars, that typically works well so that everyone can find something that they like to drive, whether it's a car that they used to own or currently own or will never own. Having a large variety, 500, 700 cars, whatever it is, there's always something that you can look forward to getting or driving. But really, when you think of how many cars you actually drive, there's probably exceptions to the rules, but you probably don't drive every car in the game. Again, the wider the variety, the more excited you can be about finding a car that exactly suits what you're trying to accomplish. But GT Sport is narrow in focus. I've already talked about this, right? So if you look at an iRacing or something like that, you could look at Automobilista, you could look at Assetto Corsa. Not huge amounts of cars. They've built upon the cars from when they first started the service, right? That's what GT Sport is doing. They're starting the service. The lack of tracks bothers me personally more because I'm worried about how many people are going to get bored. But if you look back in the day, like an iRacing, or even when Assetto Corsa first started, there wasn't a lot of tracks. It's whatever's important to you. For me, if you were looking at a weighted system or a pie chart, something like that, physics is like the biggest thing. The way the car drives and handles is the biggest thing for me, bar none. If that doesn't work, to me the game is complete garbage. I don't care how many cars are in the game. I don't care what dynamic weather system it has. I don't care how many tracks. I don't care about any of that. If the car doesn't drive well, I'm not gonna like the game. And for me, that is not an equal part. All the other pieces fit in to elevate my feeling of the game. But if it drives well, then I start looking at, okay, how many cars do we have? How many tracks do we have? All these other little pieces. If there's AI, how well does the AI perform? All these little pieces kind of put it together to either elevate the sim or drag it down a little bit. But the biggest chunk is how the cars drive. So in context, I think GT Sport drives well. That's why for me, this tilts towards the pros, even though I will say I would have a hard time buying this game because it doesn't really have a good single player aspect to it. This would be hard for me to pick up on launch. I think we singled out that one con because it is so big. The always connected portion that I've referenced to earlier is so massive that I think everything else kind of filtered into the neutral. Again, going back in, if you take out pros, neutrals, and cons and really just listen to what John's saying and what we're talking about, it's more nuanced than that. We praise the graphics, but the windshield's reflections are horrific. I mean, it's just terrible. Physics are pretty good, except for when you push the car over the limit, or the dirt physics, you know, so there's more nuance than that. I just hope that people understand that we felt like we did a thorough analysis of GT Sport at present day. We didn't push the review out at embargo because there were things we couldn't test that we wanted to test. And there's going to be things down the line that are going to come up that we're going to have to circle back around to. Alright, I want to thank you guys for watching. For all the latest in sim racing news, you can hit up isrtv.com. I've been Strange, you guys have been great. Thanks again for watching, take care, and I will catch you in the next video.